there's the official notification, just to let you know that you are being recorded before we start, okay? So we're here to talk to you a little bit about la enseñanza del inglés en la educación superior. And for this presentation, we're going to include some different aspects and components, starting out with a brief introduction, thinking about why is English important nowadays in the worldwide context, but also in our country, in our state, and specifically at UCRO, where most of you will be conducting your practicums. And similar to the context of UCRO, there are also many other universities, if not to say all of them, who have instrumented English, teaching English as one of the subjects, as a mandatory subject or sometimes as an optional subject, but there's more of a transition and tendency towards a mandatory subject. So then after that, after having kind of like that contextual background, teacher Sonia is actually going to intervene, and she's going to talk about some effective techniques for teaching in higher education. Then I'll jump back in and talk about some specific resources that you can use for teaching English within your practicum. And then finally, teacher Sonia will close with some recommendations and tips from experienced educators who have been teaching English in the context of higher education. So this is kind of where I'm going to switch a little bit to Spanish y empezar a hablar un poco acerca de la relevancia de la enseñanza del inglés en las reformas educativas, right? Entonces vemos que en el contexto internacional se ve más esta tendencia porque los países quieren utilizar, quieren que sus egresados tengan mejores oportunidades de trabajo y se empieza a ver ahora sí que la importancia del inglés como, digo, no es algo nuevo, pero ya se ha visto en los últimos por lo menos 20 años este crecimiento y tendencia de ver el inglés como una lengua franca, ¿no? Un medio de comunicación que corta a través de todos los ejes. También lo vemos, por ejemplo, en cuestión de literatura, es decir, a través de los diferentes fields, vemos que las últimas tendencias, los últimos estudios, etcétera, todo se maneja la literatura en inglés. Entonces, de ahí que esas tendencias internacionales empiezan a impactar en el ámbito nacional de nuestro país, en donde vemos que el inglés empieza a formar parte de el currículum. Ahorita en unos momentos vamos a ver a partir de exactamente en qué momento empieza a entrar el inglés dentro de la currícula de los diferentes universidades, escuelas públicas, etcétera. En el contexto estatal, pues sabemos también que el inglés obviamente en nuestro estado tiene gran importancia por el factor del turismo, ¿ok? Y pues particularmente en la UCRO también, ahora sí que todas estas políticas desde el ámbito internacional influyen en lo nacional, en lo estatal y pues obviamente en nuestra Universidad de Quintana Roo. Entonces, entrando un poquito más a detalle en el contexto internacional, por ejemplo, vemos que se empiezan a manejar en cuanto a la enseñanza del inglés diferentes enfoques. Empezamos a hablar del English, for example, as a medium of instruction, right? So the EMI. En este caso se refiere a que asignaturas de contenido se impartan a través del inglés o se impartan en inglés, ¿no? Entonces, el objetivo de esto es acercar tal vez un poco más hacia el sentido de bilingual education, intersecta también un poquito con English for specific purposes, pero básicamente es la idea de que más que una enseñanza general de inglés, es que se enseñen asignaturas dentro de los planes de estudio, pero en inglés. Esto, de hecho, si ustedes lo analizan, pues es una de las maneras en las cuales en la licenciatura de lengua inglesa enseñamos, porque ustedes tienen, por ejemplo, materias de contenido de docencia u otras materias y se enseñan en inglés, ¿ok? English as a foreign language creo que es el contexto más familiar con el que una mayoría de nosotros probablemente estudiamos tanto tal vez dentro de la secundaria, la preparatoria y no sé, a lo mejor si con estas nuevas generaciones ya les hayan tocado inglés en la primaria también, o aquellos que a lo mejor estuvieron en escuelas privadas y que no era enseñanza de contenido, y contenido me refiero a contenido académico, por ejemplo, ¿okay? Como science, math, etcétera. Entonces, English as a Foreign Language, las tendencias más actuales abordan a que sea enseñanza de inglés general, digamos, y que también sea bajo un enfoque comunicativo. Esto varía, pero de forma transversal es una de las tendencias más actuales en el contexto internacional. Y esto sucede en los países en donde el inglés no es la primera lengua, es decir, por ejemplo, en China, en Japón, en otros países, en México también, en donde la lengua primera es otra que no sea el inglés, ¿ok? English for specific purposes, pues creo que es un poco claro. Ustedes inclusive algunos han tenido una asignatura que habla sobre English for specific purposes, en donde la enseñanza del inglés está aterrizado y responde a las necesidades de los diversos programas educativos. Entonces, más que desarrollar habilidades generales del inglés, hablamos de desarrollar vocabulario, estructuras, funciones, etcétera, que estén relacionadas con el futuro profesional o el perfil profesional de la carrera, ¿no? Entonces, en el caso tal vez de médicos, nos abocaríamos a enseñarles, por ejemplo, conversations between patients and doctor y ese tipo de cuestiones, ¿no? Bilingual Education Programs, esto se ve, originalmente lo veíamos hace muchísimos años únicamente en los países y se ligaba mucho con English as a Second Language, pero se ligaba muchísimo en el sentido de países donde el primer idioma era inglés y generalmente se utilizaba para la enseñanza a estudiantes que llegaban al país, pero que su lengua materna no era el inglés, ¿no? Entonces, digamos, en el contexto, por ejemplo, de Estados Unidos, hay diferentes tipos de bilingual education models. Hablamos de un dual language, por ejemplo, que es en donde incluyes estudiantes, por ejemplo, que la mitad del salón son nativo hispanohablantes, la otra mitad son angloparlantes, y entonces las materias y los contenidos para ambos grupos, digamos los dos grupos de estudiantes que están en un solo grupo, la mitad del día la instrucción es en inglés, la otra mitad del día es en español, y entonces hacen un canje, y entonces, bueno, todo ese tipo de cuestiones, ¿no? Entonces, hay diferentes modelos de bilingual education. Creo que en el contexto de México hablamos de bilingual education sintiéndonos tal vez a las escuelas particulares, por ejemplo, en donde intersecta con English as a Medium of Instruction, porque están enseñando algunas materias de Science y Math y otros a través del inglés, ¿ok? Pero hay una concepción muy general y muy variada sobre lo que significan bilingual education programs, ¿ok? Entonces, entrando un poquito al contexto nacional. Por cierto, ya hizo la invitación la doctora Floricelli por ahí. If you have any questions and comments conforme vamos viendo estos contenidos, feel free to use the chat box. Vamos a progresar y al final de la sesión vamos a regresar y revisar. Vamos a abrir un espacio específicamente for Q&A. Entonces, bueno, si quieren anotarlos en el chat mientras, y si no, pues al final también pueden pedir la palabra, ¿va? Ok, entonces, entrando al contexto nacional, ¿qué es lo que ha sucedido con la enseñanza del inglés? Pues a partir de 1920, estamos hablando ya de casi 100 años, o sea, digo, todavía nos faltan unos añitos más, pero ya estamos entrando casi a los primeros 100 años desde que empezamos a enseñar inglés en algunas escuelas. Pero esto en algunas escuelas, pues ustedes saben o se imaginarán que mayormente eran en algunas escuelas privadas, en algunas escuelas una que otra pública, pero no es una enseñanza del inglés de manera estandarizada que podemos decir que todas las escuelas se incluyen. Sin embargo, eso sí sucede en 1992 en una de las reformas educativas, en donde se empieza a enseñar el inglés principalmente en las escuelas secundarias. Es donde se empieza aquí a trabajar la enseñanza del inglés, ¿no? Secundarias y preparatorias. En ese tiempo, y esto es alineado a los métodos también de enseñanza del inglés, pues estábamos basados más en un grammar translation method, pero de ahí en el 1993 nuevamente viene la reforma de que, a ver, necesitamos que nuestros estudiantes se comuniquen, y esto no crean que es nada más porque nació en el contexto de México, ¿eh? Esto es otra vez influencia de las políticas internacionales que salieron de la Organization for Economic and Commerce Development, la OECD, en donde empiezan a decir, a ver, se está enseñando inglés en un número de países, necesitamos que las personas dominen el inglés y el Grammar Translation Method no está funcionando, ¿ok? Entonces, bueno, a la par empiezan a surgir estas nuevas tendencias dentro de nuestro país y, bueno, en el 2009 viene una nueva reforma educativa en donde empezamos a enseñar el inglés por competencias y también inicia lo que es el Programa Nacional de Inglés en Educación Básica en nuestro país, ¿no? El planteamiento vino unos años antes, desde el 2007, pero en realidad fue a partir del 2009 donde se empezó a instrumentar en varios estados, ¿no? Incluyendo el nuestro. Entonces, esto es importante porque al hablar de inglés por competencias, y no me voy a abocar a eso aquí porque no es el ámbito de, bueno, sí enseñamos inglés por competencias, pero es en otro sentido. En la educación primaria, preescolar y secundaria, en realidad se refiere a que ese inglés también se apega al contenido que se está enseñando en otras materias y que los proyectos forman parte de otras materias. Entonces, bueno, hablándoles un poquito sobre el contexto estatal, ahora ya no se llama PNIEP, sino se llama PRONI, el Programa Nacional de Inglés. A pesar de ser un programa nacional y que supuestamente es algo ya instrumentado en todas las escuelas, porque inclusive se ha modificado la currícula de las diferentes instituciones, vemos que en realidad en nuestro estado, por ejemplo, el número de escuelas son 246. No tengo el dato de cuántas escuelas hay en el estado, pero sé que son muchísimo más de 246 escuelas, porque en pláticas con la persona que está coordinando el PRONI en el estado, me mencionaba que únicamente han llegado como a un 33 o 36% de cobertura de las escuelas. Entonces, en ese sentido, pues vemos ahora sí que muchas dificultades, porque esto cómo va a influir en la educación superior y en el contexto de la UCRO, que a nuestra universidad van a llegar estudiantes que a lo mejor tengan algunos conocimientos de inglés, ¿sí? Van a llegar estudiantes porque han tenido la oportunidad de estar en el PRONI, van a llegar estudiantes tal vez de comunidades rurales, por ejemplo, en donde el profesor de inglés, porque eso lo hemos vivido ya a través de experiencias y yo sé que muchos de ustedes que están realizando prácticas lo van a vivir ahora, los que están en escuelas preparatorias, muchas veces o a veces el profesor de inglés no es del área de inglés, no habla inglés. Entonces, ¿eso qué significa para la enseñanza del inglés en las escuelas preparatorias? Pues significa que muchas veces no se está logrando cumplir con los objetivos y eso va a influir obviamente pues en el nivel de inglés con el que llegan los estudiantes. Entonces, perdón, me salté una. Hablando del contexto de la UCRO específicamente, que es donde muchos de ustedes también van a realizar sus prácticas, vemos que a principios de los años 90 se crea nuestra universidad, entra dentro del programa de inglés 4 niveles como un requisito de titulación, ¿sí? Sin embargo, vemos que entre el 91 y el 98 en realidad son materias de inglés extracurriculares, es decir, antes tenían una clave que se llamaba PIN, y por ahí está la doctora Flori que no me va a dejar mentir, le correspondía al Centro de Autoacceso en ese tiempo o al Programa Universitario de Idiomas coordinar toda esta parte de los PINs, impartición también de las asignaturas de inglés. Y cada programa, en el 98, cada programa establece un nivel requisito de idioma. Sin embargo, en el 99 viene otra, digamos, reforma en donde se elimina el requisito de titulación en los diferentes programas con respecto al nivel de inglés y decimos, ok, para generaciones previas, pues va a ser el intro. Entonces, ustedes pueden ver, hasta el 2007 viene la inclusión del inglés como asignatura general en los programas educativos y ahora ya se habla de 4 niveles obligatorios. Se estarán preguntando, ¿qué tiene que ver esto con cómo enseñamos inglés? Y en un momento les voy a explicar un poquito más de cómo incide esto a través de un estudio que hicimos en el 2000. Sorry for the doggy in the background. De un estudio que hicimos en el 2014, ¿sale? Entonces, ¿por qué se incluye el inglés como asignatura obligatoria? Tenía 3 objetivos. Uno de ellos era abatir los altos índices de reprobación, es decir, al ser una materia extracurricular, muchas veces a los estudiantes no le daban la importancia al inglés porque era una materia extra, lo que sucedía muchas veces también en otros niveles educativos, y entonces el inglés se convertía en algo extra que en realidad no le hacíamos caso y no pasaba nada si la reprobábamos. Entonces habían muy altos índices de reprobación, llegaban también al final de la carrera y no se podían titular porque no tenían el nivel de inglés, ¿ok? Entonces por eso el objetivo de cambiar el carácter de asignatura de apoyo e incluirla como una de formación general. Y el tercer objetivo tenía que ver con impulsar los procesos de internacionalización. Y en este sentido, internacionalización se definió en el nuevo modelo educativo que surgió en ese momento como el uso de bibliografía, por ejemplo, y referencias en los planes de estudio que tuvieran que ver, que estuvieran en inglés, tratar de apuntalar un poco más hacia esta parte de invitar a profesores de otros países, por ejemplo, a que dieran alguno de los cursos en inglés, que los profesores de UCRO, por ejemplo, también se fueran capacitando en esta cuestión del inglés, y entonces empezara a haber más ese tipo tanto de movilidad como de internacionalización de los profesores, estudiantes y demás, ¿no? Entonces, bueno, esos fueron como que los 3 objetivos de incluirlo. ¿Qué les podemos decir con respecto al estudio que se hizo? Bueno, los altos índices de reprobación sí disminuyeron. Como pueden ver, el porcentaje puntual haciendo un comparativo de los años, el índice de reprobación anteriormente, hasta del 2003 al 2007, era del 48%, sin embargo, a partir del 2008, ya cuando se instrumentó la inclusión del inglés como asignatura obligatoria y que ya ya contaba, digamos, como una asignatura si la reprobabas, pues obviamente disminuye el índice de reprobación y entonces llega a un 39%, ¿no? Al cambiar el carácter de asignatura, de apoyo por tipo general, también tuvo su impacto, tanto consecuencias positivas como negativas. Ahí ven algunos comentarios de estudiantes en ese momento, donde básicamente, pues, antes el inglés, ellos dicen, ¿no? Pues era una materia que no te perjudicaba, pero ahora ya al ser una materia obligatoria, pues entonces ya como que tienen que entrar, tenemos que cumplir, tenemos que hacer, ¿ok? Y pues en cuanto a impulsar los procesos de internacionalización, en realidad vemos que este es en donde, a pesar que los estudiantes mostraron que sí les sería de utilidad o dijeron que sí les sería de utilidad, pues vemos que no existe esa relación con su formación directamente, ¿no? Entonces, dicen que sí les sirve para ayudar a entender algunas lecturas y demás, pero no es algo que se haya realmente llegado a la instrumentación y aplicación dentro de los programas, ¿no? Es decir, que veamos dentro de la bibliografía la inclusión del inglés, ¿ok? Ahora, ¿cuál es el impacto de todo esto en la enseñanza del inglés en la educación superior? ¿Cómo creen ustedes que esto, por ejemplo, va a influir en los estudiantes que actualmente están en la UCRO y que ustedes van a estar posiblemente enseñando si les toca en alguna materia de inglés general? Y ahí pueden utilizar el chat para poner sus comentarios, ¿eh? O si quieren levantar la mano, también abrimos micrófonos. ¿Creen que tenga algún impacto? El hecho de que los estudiantes, por ejemplo, tengan que llevar el inglés. ¿Alguien? No veo manitas arriba, así que perdón si alguien tiene levantada la mano. Por ahí. ¿No? Bueno, ok. Creo que estamos todavía medios dormidos. Falta el cafecito para despertar, ¿verdad? Bueno, en este caso, ok, a ver, aquí empiezan los comentarios. A ver, Daniel, creo que los ayudará a sumergirse en un ambiente en el inglés y eso hará que puedan tener mejores oportunidades de trabajo. Ok, hace que tomen más en serio la materia, dice Joaquín. Muchas gracias por sus comentarios. Daniel, definitivamente el hecho de que ellos vean la utilidad del inglés, pues es una forma de motivación intrínseca, ¿verdad? Entonces sabemos que mientras más motivación tengan nuestros estudiantes, pues más le van a dar la importancia al inglés, ¿no? Y esta importancia más en serio de lo que hablaba Joaquín, ¿ok? Excelente. Definitivamente vamos a tener estudiantes que por lo menos van a estar preocupados por acreditar la asignatura, es decir, no van a querer reprobarla, ¿verdad? Porque saben que les va a afectar negativamente, ¿ok? A la vez también el hecho de que sea una materia obligatoria, pues podría ser como que algo de que tengo que hacerlo. Entonces eso también podría influir en la motivación de los estudiantes. Pero yo sé que muchos de ustedes están interesados en el tema de la motivación y precisamente sabemos que la motivación es uno de los factores importantes en la enseñanza. Tal vez, por ejemplo, viendo estos resultados, a mí se me ocurre que si ustedes identifican a algún estudiante que no esté tan motivado, pues entonces a lo mejor nos ayudaría para acercarnos con ese estudiante y ver si a lo mejor implementando algunas lecturas tal vez que sean o algunas actividades o algunos roleplays o algo que esté más relacionado con su carrera, a lo mejor les ayudaría a motivarlos un poco más, ¿no? Ok, a ver, José Alberto nos comenta, tengo una amiga de sistemas comerciales que no había querido aprender inglés. Ahora que sabe que tiene que aprobarla, ya le agarró amor y está proyectando su vida laboral a un rango más elevado que cuando se matriculó. Hasta me pide asesorías. Eso es excelente. Entonces vemos que sí ha tenido un impacto positivo en cuanto a la motivación de los estudiantes esta inclusión del inglés. Y eso recuerden, o sea, va a impactar en la enseñanza que ustedes hagan, porque de una manera u otra ya saben que es una forma de incidir en la motivación, de elevar la motivación de sus estudiantes si en algún momento se requiriera, ¿no? Sabemos que la enseñanza del inglés en la UCRO pues es de forma general para todas las carreras, salvo precisamente creo que sistemas comerciales que tiene una asignatura de como inglés para negocios, ¿no? Que tiene un enfoque un poco más, creo que de ESP. El hecho de que la materia de inglés ya no se considere como extracurricular les ayudará a comprometerse más con el idioma, se darán cuenta que eso les va a ayudar en el futuro, definitivamente, y eso también pues es lo que señalan los resultados de esta investigación que hizo en el 2014 y aunque ya tiene pues unos 6 años, pues sabemos que creemos que probablemente esto siga pues vigente todavía, ¿no? Estos sentimientos. Muchas gracias por compartir sus experiencias. Entonces, bueno, con esto voy a cederle el paso, ya teniendo como que un poquito de contexto sobre la enseñanza del inglés, voy a ceder el paso a la maestra Sonia, que nos va a platicar sobre algunas técnicas que son efectivas for teaching in higher education. So, all yours, Sonia.
Thank you. Muchas gracias, doctora Deon. La verdad que todo esto es muy interesante, ¿verdad? Escuchar la plática sobre cómo ha avanzado el inglés o cómo ha cambiado la forma de mirar el inglés en la universidad y también pues a nivel para todos, ¿no? Es interesante que la motivación forma pues una parte importante. Muchas veces estudiamos inglés o se estudia inglés porque ni modos, porque lo tengo que estudiar, porque me dicen que me va a ayudar, porque tengo que pasar la materia, Entonces, a veces no es exactamente porque quiero aprender o quiero hacer las cosas o porque me motiva que me interesa el idioma o los idiomas en general, sino porque ni modos, ¿no? Ahí está y lo tengo que hacer. Entonces, aquí creo que entra una parte de lo que nosotros vamos a platicar ahorita de las técnicas efectivas, ¿verdad? Porque los estudiantes, pues, necesitan esa motivación y nosotros como profesores tenemos que aprender a motivarlos. Para eso están los métodos, las técnicas, las estrategias, para que nosotros podamos, pues, apoyar a los estudiantes lo más que se pueda y no ser esos profesores que, la verdad, yo recuerdo, ¿no? Yo tenía profesores también de inglés que no quiero hablar mal de ellos, pero la verdad, o sea, llegaban y grammar, apréndete este montón de verbos, utilízalos de esta manera, no, esto es así, o sea, querían que las cosas sean by heart. Y ayer aprendí y muchas veces he escuchado que las cosas by heart pues no funcionan, ¿verdad? Porque no le tenemos cariño, lo hacemos porque pues lo tenemos que hacer. Entonces lo que vamos a ver hoy son algunas técnicas que a lo mejor muchos de ustedes ya lo han utilizado, ya lo han visto anteriormente, ya lo han experimentado tanto como alumnos o como teacher practitioners, ¿verdad? Yo pienso que ya lo han hecho tal vez. Algunos tal vez sabrán los nombres, solo veremos 5, ¿no? Algunos ya saben los nombres, probablemente otros no sabían que se llamaban así, pero sí ya lo han utilizado antes. Entonces, estoy segura que por lo menos 2 o 3 de ellos ya los conocen, ¿no? Pero vamos a recordarlos un poquito para que podamos pues refrescar un poquito, que a veces la verdad sí nos oxidamos, ¿verdad? Ahí estamos sentados haciendo las cosas y pues se nos olvida que podemos hacer cosas interesantes para los chicos y creo que ahorita con el problema que se nos vino encima de la pandemia, pues hemos tenido que ser más creativos que nunca como profesores de inglés. Estoy segura que están de acuerdo conmigo, ¿verdad? Y como estudiantes también, ¿no? Porque hemos hecho circo, marometa y teatro ahí para poder atender a las clases y a todo lo que nos exigen nuestros profesores. Entonces, Deon, could you please come on the first slide? Thank you. KWL chart. I'm pretty sure that many of you have already experienced, as I said, as a student or as a teacher practitioner, this chart. Any of you would like to tell me something about it? What do you know about it, or what was your experience with it before we start with the explanation? Sí pueden hablar, ¿verdad, Dion? O lo pueden poner en el chat, ¿no? So, anybody? Do you know the chart? Have you used it, or has any teacher used it to teach you?
Profesora, ¿puedo hablar?
Sí, claro, por supuesto.
Se refiere a... Disculpe, es que no estoy familiarizada con el término KWL chart, pero estoy viendo que dice Graphic Organizer. ¿Son básicamente esquemas, como un cuadro sinóptico o un mapa mental o algo así, o estoy equivocada?
Sí, es un Graphic Organizer, es un organizador, sí, gráfico, que puedes utilizar. Y no sé si algún momento tú has experimentado con ello o algún profesor ha hecho o lo ha utilizado.
Sí, claro que sí. Definitivamente muchos de mis maestros a lo largo de la carrera nos han pedido que organicemos la información de distintos temas que nos enseñen mediante organizadores gráficos, porque, o sea, yo considero que son una manera muy efectiva de esquematizar la información en cuestión de conceptualizar o simplemente acomodar con dibujos, representaciones mentales, todo eso. Siento que es muy efectivo y una manera muy organizada de tener todo lo que necesitas saber acerca de ese tema.
Ok, muchas gracias, Ariadne. Thank you. ¿Alguien más?
Tenemos unos comentarios en el chat, maestra Sonia. No sé si quiere que te apoye o tú los lees.
Ajá, dice personalmente, a ver. Creo que yo ya me perdí aquí.
Daniel Muñoz
dice. Es Daniel, ¿verdad? Daniel. Hacer algún tipo de esquema ayuda a organizar la información y muchas personas aprenden de manera visual. Ok, muy bien. Samara dice, personalmente me parece una técnica súper buena como ejercicio metacognitivo. Como estudiante me ha ayudado mucho a darme cuenta y estar consciente de lo que ya sé y lo que voy a aprender y de lo que me hace falta. Exactamente, Samara, de eso se trata el KWL chart, ¿no? It activates a certain way what you already know, ¿no? It activates your prior knowledge And also it helps you to analyze and to think on what you want to know about the topic. And then at the end, you can see what you have actually learned. No? And that's why it says KWL, because K is for know, what you want to know about the topic, and W, what you want to know. Sorry, K is know what you know about the topic, and W, what you want to know, and L at the end, what did you learn? No? With this KWL chart. And it says it helps you, or it helps the student recall prior knowledge and identify future learning needs, because you can also use it in order to know what do you need to do in order to learn. It depends on the topic, or it depends on what you want to know. No? It also reflects on changing in the understanding and in the skills and the attitudes that students sometimes have. It helps them organize their ideas, and it helps them activate that knowledge that they already have and give it like a point, no, or somewhere that I am going to go, something that I want to achieve. And how am I going to do it? Well, I need to know what I know. I need to know what I want to know about the topic, and then what I actually did at the end. No? In order that, that we understand it a little bit better, I'm going to ask Teacher Deon to please put the video. There's a video of a teacher applying this technique so that we can all have a chance to see it.
Okay, just let me know if you can see it, okay?
We can see it, and
Hi, today I would like to introduce you a new teaching strategy called the KWL chart. As you can see right here next to me. This is kind of what it looks like, or what I would put on the board. It is composed of 3 stages that reflect a worksheet that has 3 columns and 3 letters. As you see right here. This is an actual worksheet that I will hand to my students. Usually I do it in groups of 2s or 4s. I find it more easier for my students to interact with each other versus maybe interacting with me. The purpose of teaching this strategy is to access the students' prior knowledge. Another reason, you will also interact with a portion of the text prior to reading. You might identify vocabulary words that the students may have a problem with, or you might construct meaning before actually reading the text. Now let's go back to the KWL chart. As I stated before, the K, W, L. The K represents what the students already know. You will give them a topic, and then you will ask them, what do you know about this topic? And you will allow them to verbally or actually come up and write the information in the first column. The students will use this space to discuss prior knowledge in the first column. Then you have the W, which represents the want. What do the students want to know based on the topic that was given to them? Students will look at what they already know and formulate questions right here in the second column. They might also identify those problem vocabulary words that they may have and place it here. Maybe asking a question like, what does that actual vocabulary word mean? Then as a teacher, I will assign them a text for them to read. In this stage, I will probably do maybe a 3-minute pause where they will interact as a group and read for 3 minutes, just to see if they can answer the actual questions that they want to know. After the 3 minutes, or maybe longer, then as the students gather together, they will formulate answers to tell me what they learned. They will summarize this information, and then they will attempt to answer what they want to know. If they can answer that, they will place it here in the third chart. If they cannot answer it, maybe further along down the text, the information will apply. And that concludes my KWL chart strategy. I thank you for your time, and goodbye.
Okay, Sonia, are you there? I think you might have your mic silenced.
Yes, I did. Sorry. Sorry, Deon. Yeah, I was saying, Paola said we have already used the KWL chart with teacher Deon. I think that it is really handy to realize that I have what I have already learned. Huh? And then Joaquin says, I remember it from the beginning of the major with Dr. Deon about what we know and want and learn of English language major. Of course, we saw that in the video, it was a really simple way of presenting the KWL chart. She was talking, of course, about a reading that they were going to do, but this graphic organizer can be used pretty much with any topic that is interesting for you and of what you want to know or of what the teacher wants to activate in the student, because it doesn't really have to serve only for a certain type of activity. You can use it like what you were saying in order to know what do you know about English and what do you want to know about English, and at the end what you learned. In this case, in the video, well, the teacher at the end of the activity would have the third column filled in, but it doesn't have to happen that way all the time. I mean, it can be at the end of the lesson if this is what you want to do, or it could also be at the end of the week, or it could be at the end of the unit, or it could be at the end of the month. It depends on what, or at the end of the course, it depends on what you really want the students to how do you want them to organize the information and what is the objective of that KWL chart. Thank you. Can you move on to the other technique, please? Flipped classroom. I'm not sure if you guys have heard about this flipped classroom. Anybody has an idea or has experienced it? What can you tell me about flipped classroom? Anybody knows? Veo que hay alguien en el chat. No sé si es esto. Ah, Deon. Okay, this is one of my personal favorites. Okay. ¿Eso de cuál hablas? ¿Del KWL?
Yes, that's right. KWL.
I thought so. I thought so. Well, I think talking about flipped classrooms, you know, when I was, the first time that I heard this term, I was like, oh, I don't really know what it is about. But afterwards, I was reading about it, and I realized that I kind of had been doing that with my literature class. Because what I did with my literature classes is that I gave the students the readings or the stories that they had to analyze. They had to do that at home. It was homework. And then when we came into the class, it was discussion session. I mean, we spoke about the readings, we solved doubts, we had debates, but this is what flipped classroom is about, okay? It says it's a pedagogical model where lecture and homework elements of a model are reversed. Usually what do? Usually we do all the activities in the class and then we leave the homework, and the homework is the practice that the student does at home. Here it is the other way around. What you do is that you can record a video with the lecture, or you can give the students a reading that they will have to do as a homework prior to the class. Because what you really do in the class is to revise those videos or those readings, and the class is only for discussion or for activities that have to do with that specific information that you have given already to the students, right? And again, it doesn't only have to be with this problem that we have, health issue that we have now. Many teachers are using this. Many of the teachers, what they're doing is that they record their classes. They tell the students that they have to look at that, they have to watch that recording, and they have to, or they give the readings to the, I do it with my class with enseñanza de habilidades. I don't know if I have students here from enseñanza de habilidades, but they have to do the readings first. And then afterwards, when we come to the class, the idea is that we discuss what they read and we do activities based on what they read. So that is what we are talking about here in the flipped classroom, which would be the main point in the flipped classroom would be the video or the readings that you give the students so that they can do at home, okay? And the time that you have face-to-face with the students would be used for reviewing what was in the content, giving activities, and probably knowing or looking at what the student really got from this information that you gave them. It says that there are 3 important points that we need to consider in a flipped classroom. And one is the homework, okay? If the student does not read, if the student does not watch the video, it's going to be very difficult for them to participate in the class or to participate in the face-to-face session because they won't know what you are talking about. So we need to come up with certain strategies or some way to have the students that haven't done the reading well, see how we're going to make them do it or be responsible enough to do what they are supposed to do at home, okay? So we have to come up with certain strategies. We have to think about it. We have to, maybe we come up, I don't know, we come to the class with a small quiz, or we come to the class with a small activity where they can share, so that if the student didn't really read or didn't watch the video, well, at least he will be able to participate with their classmates and get something, you know, out of what they were supposed to have done. Another important point that we are supposed to take into account is the homework quality. We know that nobody likes watching really long videos. I mean, I don't want to watch the teacher speaking for half an hour, for an hour, giving me a lecture and talking about a lot of stuff that, you know, it's only going to get my mind all mixed up probably. So what does the teacher need to do? Well, to keep it short, keep the important parts, keep, for example, in the case of the readings, if they're too long, tell the students, okay, you're just going to look at the main points. What are the important things that you need to know? And that is what you're going to see in the class, because many of the times if we give them 1, 2, or 3 readings and they don't really know what they're looking for or what are the important things that they need to look, when they come to the class, they will practically not know anything, huh? Or maybe know everything and nothing at the same time. So we have to be careful with what we give, which is the quality of the information that we are giving the student on a video or on a reading, okay? And another thing, the third thing that the teachers sometimes worry about is the production of the video. If you have to record a video, well, you are worried that it is well done, no? Of course, it has to have the main elements. Students are supposed to be able to watch it properly. It should flow naturally. Maybe the tone of the voice, because sometimes the sound should be really accurate and good so that the student doesn't have to strain to listen to that video, okay? And probably center it in the topic, in what you really want the student to know. And you can make it interesting. I mean, you can put in figures, you can put in videos, you can put in music, so that it is not a strain for the student to look at it, so that they don't feel like they are, you know, being punished and they have to watch that video. It should be something that they can actually enjoy and they can learn from it, okay? So this is what Flipped Classroom is about. So maybe to know a little bit more, Deon, could you please put on the video that I have there, please?
The flipped classroom is a new method of teaching that is turning the traditional classroom on its head. Every day, thousands of teachers deliver the exact same lesson in class to millions of students. Every night, millions of students sit over the exact same homework, trying to figure out how to solve it. The flipped classroom is turning this upside down. Traditionally, students listen to lectures and take tests in class, and read textbooks and work on problem sets at home. In flipped teaching, students first study the topic by themselves, typically using video lessons on YouTube, and then apply the knowledge by solving problems and doing practical work in class. Modern schools who flipped their classroom report many benefits. 1. It allows all students to learn at their own pace, as videos can be watched again. 2. It's more efficient, as students enter the classroom prepared to contribute. 3. It enriches the classroom, as more time can be spent on group work and projects. 4. Doing homework in class allows students to help each other, which benefits both the advanced and less advanced learners. Flipping also brings changes for teachers. Traditionally, teachers engage most with the confident students who ask questions. Flipping allows teachers to target the students who really need help instead of just those who are confident. Also, instead of instructing from the front, teachers guide on the side. This allows them to work more closely with individuals or small groups. Teachers that are not great presenters can use third-party videos to explain the concept and focus on methods of teaching that suit their style, such as project work or experiments. Once video lectures are made available online, teachers don't need to give the same lecture over and over again. Again, they gain more time to focus on the needs of their class. Many scholars also argue that the flipped classroom model promotes equal learning opportunities, as all kids get the same attention when doing their homework. Currently, kids with caring parents, older siblings at home, or expensive private tutors have a clear advantage over those who don't. Let us know what you think. If you were a teacher, tell us if this model would be possible in your classroom. If you were a student, let us know if you would prefer learning in a flipped classroom.
Okay, thank you very much, Deon. Have you heard, guys, had you heard about this, or are you using probably this technique right now in your classes? Anybody wants to share?
Can I say something?
Yes, of course.
So, recently I started to implement this technique. I consider it as a great tool to have an engaging and entertaining class. So what I do is I start my classes with a video and then we discuss about it, you know, just to introduce the topic. That's what I do and my students really enjoy it.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Thank you, Santiago. Of course, this kind of wants probably the video could be left as a homework. No, it could be left as a homework so that when you come into the class, well, you can do activities based on that video. That is more or less what the flipped classroom idea would be. Here, Teacher Deon is saying we commonly think of using flipped classroom with content classes. However, we can also use it in language classes. For example, when you ask the students to do writing, speaking assignments to the class and do self-reflections, peer and whole group revisions in class. Okay, it says, okay, sorry, do it before the class. Yes, probably they would need to do this writing, speaking assignments before the class and then bring it to the class, and there is when you can do the revision. No? That would be the idea. Okay, Samaria says, I had never heard of it before. I think I have experienced it before as a student though, and now it all makes sense. Yes, probably. That's what I was telling you, that maybe some of us are using it, or maybe our teachers are using it, but we didn't really know what it meant. No? Did any of you manage to remember or to what it said in the video about the advantages that it has for students? Okay, I don't like flipped classrooms with huge topics. It's so drained to try to learn hard topics by myself. Okay, yeah, Joaquin. That is where we were saying, no, that probably the student should be, not the student, the teacher should be creative enough and to, if it's a video, well, to look at the main parts or what is really important. If it is a reading, to tell you what you're looking for or what's the relevant information, no, that you need to read about, because yes, it can be really tedious. Santiago, you wanted to say something, or escucho como que alguien quiere decir algo?
I think it's Oscar.
¿Ah?
Oscar.
Oscar.
Yes, you were asking about the advantages, and so I heard that one of the advantages is that the students are more productive because they know the topic and they can contribute in the class.
Yes, Oscar, definitely. That was one of the, thank you, that was one of the benefits for the student. Any other that you remember? They mentioned about 4 or 5 more or less.
Can I say something?
Yes, Santiago,
Can I
go ahead.
speak?
Yeah,
Okay.
It says that it gives equal learning opportunities to all the students because they can learn on their own pace.
Exactly. They can learn at their own pace, okay? There is nobody like chasing them. You know that sometimes in the classroom, well, we want to finish, or there are always others that finish before us with the reading, and we are just managing to finish, trying to finish. And in this case, the student has all the opportunity to read and read and reread at home, and then come and participate and be a little bit more productive. I think somebody else wanted to say something.
Yes, it was me, teacher.
Ariadne? Uh-huh.
Another advantage was that actually students can give feedback themselves about the topic and during the homework section. But I also wanted to say a comment. It's most an experience I had at high school. There was a teacher who used to teach us biology, and he used to employ this kind of flip classroom, but I don't think he used to do it right, because the thing that he used to do was to give us a topic to study at home. He used to leave us this whole bunch of readings and videos, really long videos and really long readings, and the next day he was just like, okay, so those who what you saw on the video on the previous day, now you can do this homework. And he used to give us the activity, and you have to do the activity, because if not, well, you may fail the course. Sorry, yeah. And this didn't work at all for me. I mean, it was really stressful, and I think I took this bad experience with me about flipped classroom, because the teacher didn't give us proper feedback. He just used to give us all the information and a whole bunch of reading and videos at home, and then you know what to do. And then he was like, okay, so you have doubts about the topic. And my classmates and myself, we were like, we don't even know what the doubts we have, because we don't really understand the topic properly, because it was all about biological concepts and all of these topics that we don't know. And I think this flipped classroom is such a useful tool, but you have to use it like very, very, very precise, very well with the students in order to help them. Like, do not give them a bunch of videos, a bunch of readings, and you have to give them proper feedback the next day and homework that they can properly do,
Yes.
so they can acquire better the topic they are trying to learn.
Yes, thank you, Ariadne. I totally agree with you. And well, a bad experience we can see, well, can have disappointed at something that could be really good. If you remember what they mentioned right now on the video, is that the teacher is not in front of the classroom, but he is beside. I mean, this technique doesn't mean that the teacher is going to, give all the responsibility to the student, where he will have to learn on his own and he would have to do the activities. No, he has to be there on the side helping, giving feedback. Having this information be digested by the student really well. I mean, it's not that I am going to, as a teacher, to forget that I need to give feedback to the student, that I need the student to know, tell the students, or see to make sure that the students are learning or are understanding the information that I am giving them. I have to be there. No, that is part of the job. Okay, so let me see what it says here. I think Paulette says, I have never applied this strategy in the classroom, but it sounds really interesting. Creo que arriba había otro, ¿verdad?
Don't worry, I'm going answering some of the comments too. I'll let you know if there's any that I haven't answered. A lot of students are sharing out their experiences.
Okay.
Of having used these strategies in the classroom, like they've learned as students, they've had teachers use these with them. So I think the important thing here is that you identify how you are going to be able to use them as teachers in language instruction, right?
Of course, yes. Okay, well, help me with that. Maybe if there is something like you want to express that is important to say, we can do that too. Okay, another benefit would be that, of course, the students can help each other. They can give feedback to each other. But there were also benefits as a teacher. Do you remember which were some of the benefits as a teacher that were mentioned? ¿Alguien recuerda?
Yeah, can I say something?
Yes, Santiago, of course.
They were saying that it's useful for those teachers who are not able, who are not good at presenting the topic. So it will help them to explain it better.
Yeah, that's true. If the teacher is not that keen at giving a presentation or presenting the class, this will help them, no? Because they can record a video at their own time and they can, you know, do it and redo it as many times as they can, and probably until they find that they get it properly. William Pacheco says we can focus on students' needs. Yes, okay, we can spend more time focusing on what our students need, which are the students that need more help. And because we will notice this, we will be better, we will have more time to notice which are the students that need more help, and that we can focus on them, right? Anything else? Anybody remembers something else?
Teacher,
Yes, Ariadne?
say something about the comment disadvantage for the teacher, that if the teacher is not really that able to present his topic properly, and that he may rely on the feedback, the flipped classroom technique, I think this is something that I don't quite agree with this. I don't find it really useful that if a teacher not know how to teach properly his topic or her topic, he can, or she can just like rely on the material and like get away from his ability to teach the topic properly. I have this teacher actually this semester. He uses this technique, and it's not really helpful for us, the students, to learn properly about this, because we can see that he doesn't know how to teach properly the topic. He is not that able, like he doesn't know how to present the topic properly, and it's okay, we understand, but he relies so much on this technique, and he uses these videos and he uses this material to teach us, but we don't really learn because we don't get proper feedback, and I don't think this is really an advantage, but I don't really know about it, so.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying, Ariadne. It's not really an advantage for the student, as you are pointing, as you're pointing it out, no, as how this teacher uses it. Here it was talking more about an advantage for a teacher that probably doesn't have the confidence enough sometimes to stand in front of a class and to give his class. And I totally agree with you. I mean, as a teacher, we need to develop that ability to be able to stand in front of a class, to talk to the class, to be able to transmit that information and that knowledge that I have. If not, well, I am not a good teacher. I am not doing my job as a teacher. No? The advantage here that they were mentioning was that for this teacher that probably is not yet confident, you know, when we are starting sometimes, we're beginning in this road of teaching, well, we can get nervous. There are certain things that can fall out of our control. And well, we can rely a little bit on a video. But as you say, this is not, it's not supposed to be only that. I mean, I have to do my job as a teacher. I have to teach, I have to clarify students' doubts, and I have to give feedback, and that is what I need to do. That is something that definitely I cannot put aside. No? So I agree with you that it really shouldn't be just, just using these videos and not using them properly. Because then what happens is what you're saying, no? The student doesn't really enjoy what you're doing. And what we were saying is that we were trying to give a little bit more action and different things to our teaching so that students will get involved and they can do things. No? Another point that they mentioned here, sometimes we can say as teachers that it's really, I think it has happened to some of you that are there, that are teachers, that you need to prepare, because it's not easy to do these recordings and to prepare materials and to look for readings and to know what the students are good and to summarize them and to work with activities. But once you do it, you already have all the material there and you won't need to repeat it. Probably you would need to refresh it because information is always, you know, se está actualizando todo el tiempo, entonces tengo que estar actualizado. I have to be up to date, si no, pues no funciona, ¿no? But if you have the material there, it is something that you can reuse, and you can reuse maybe for a couple of times or 3 times, and it works, no? It works for the teacher. I don't know if anybody wants to add something else before we move on to the other. Yes?
Sorry, just to let you know that Uriel has his hand raised.
Uriel, sorry. Yes, go ahead, Uriel.
Yes, thank you. I just want to make a comment about, according to my personal experience as a student, I've noticed that sometimes some students don't do the activities assigned by the professor. So when they come to the class, they don't know what to talk about. Oh, they don't know the topic or how to comment about the class because they didn't do the activities. So I think it is something that we as teachers have to have in mind, to consider another options to do in the class if this happen in our teaching practice.
Yes, that's true. It happens, no? And there was something there that they said that if it doesn't work, well, you need to come up with certain strategies. But also, we need to make the students conscious that it is part of their responsibility to do the homeworks and to do the readings and to watch the videos. We need to be really strict on that. And maybe it's going to happen one time or a second time, but then if you try to, you know, have the students really be conscious that this is important and they need to do it, probably you will get a better response, no, from the students. But yes, in the meantime, we need to come up with certain techniques or certain strategies so that our class doesn't, you know, fall. And we need to do that. Okay, let's move on to the other technique, Deon. Thank you guys for participating. It's really, really good, your participation. Zigzag learning. Okay, I am pretty sure that many of you have heard about the zigzag learning and probably have used it before. It says it organizes group work and everybody has to collaborate, okay? And students have to rely on each other because, you know, this is like part of a puzzle. If a part of a puzzle is missing, you cannot put the whole picture together, okay? The same thing happens here. Everybody has a task. Everybody has something to do. And if that person doesn't do it or is not responsible enough, then we cannot create the whole picture. So we need to collaborate and we need to rely on each other. Here it says each individual has something unique to contribute into their group's outcome. No one else in the group is doing the same task. So the student has a higher sense of ownership and accountability. This means they have to answer to their team if they don't do their part, okay? Everybody has to do their part so that this works. If not, it's not going to work. What it helps the student is to critically analyze, evaluate, and apply ideas from a large amount of information. And it allows students to participate and to cooperate in small groups, and also to accept responsibility for their own learning, okay? So in order to understand it a little bit better, can we see the video, Deon, please?
This video is a very short primer for teachers on using the cooperative learning method called Jigsaw in an English language learning class. Today we'll be looking at the Jigsaw in the English language learning classroom. For more information, visit esljigsaws.com. There are 3 stages to a jigsaw activity. Stage 1 is where expert groups learn 1/4 of the story. In this stage, each member of the group has the same text. Stage 2 is where heterogeneous groups teach each other the section of text they've learned. Stage 3 is where students work cooperatively on follow-up activities. You'll notice in this visual representation of a 16-student class that groups are color-coded. This makes for a much more seamless transition as students move from their expert groups into their mixed groups, easily finding who they're meant to be working with. Whether you do it the same day or the day before, the first job for the teacher is to pre-teach the vocabulary from the story. An alternative would be to give the vocabulary for homework. For higher level classes, part of their stage 1 work could be to look up all the vocabulary words in their section of text and define them using simple English explanations they think their classmates will follow. But while this sounds wonderfully student-directed, understanding the vocabulary is key to the jigsaw activity working, so this may only be suitable for higher level classes. Stage 1 is where all the students in a group have the same section of text. They spend 5 or 10 or 15 minutes together, depending on the class and the text chosen, to learn that part. During stage 1, while students learn their section of the text, you'll see a lot of peer teaching as students attempt to decipher meaning and assist each other with memorization. Peer teaching is great for lowering the affective filter, so it's worthwhile giving students the opportunity to do as much as they can on their own before stepping in. During stage 1, the teacher circulates and checks that each student comprehends the text passage. Next, the teacher checks pronunciation and intonation to ensure others will comprehend what they're hearing. At the end of stage 1, text passages are removed and the teacher checks to ensure students have memorized their passages and are ready to move on and tell their part to other students. Stage 2 is mixed groups with 1 expert from each section of the text. With a jigsaw based on 4 parts, each group would have a student from section A, B, C, and D. This is the listening and speaking stage. Student A begins and will clarify if any confusion arises. Ensure that students are familiar with gambits for comprehension checks before beginning a jigsaw so that they can deal with any confusion that might occur. What if you don't have multiples of 4 in your class and you're doing a 4-part jigsaw? Here are some options of what you can do. Image 1 shows the teacher taking a role. Image 2 shows 1 student telling his part to 2 groups. Image 3 shows 2 lower students, each learning half of 1 part that has been divided into 2 shorter parts. Image 4 shows 2 lower students learning the same full part and staying together for the entire exercise to help each other. Image 5 shows 1 student learning 2 parts. This works well if you have a higher student in your class who needs more of a challenge. Stage 3 is a 4-skills stage where students make use of listening, speaking, reading, and writing as they work cooperatively on written questions related to the jigsaw. For more ideas on making jigsaws of your own or for ready-made jigsaws,
Okay, thank you very much, Teacher Deon. Well, we know that these techniques, of course, we can, they have variations. You can do things that would work better for your classes. So this is like an example, no, of what you can do. What is really important here is that we can see that students have to collaborate. Okay, they have to collaborate and they have to rely on the other on their classmates, and the classmate has to be responsible enough because he has a job. He has something to do so that they can really contribute and that they have a successful outcome. No? That's the idea of this jigsaw learning. I don't know if we have time, if anybody has experienced this, probably in a class, algo muy rapidito antes de que pasemos al otro.
Teacher Sonia, if I can, I just want to point out, because something that worried me a little bit in the sense of the video is that they, in this task where they were using it with students in a language class, it kind of gave the idea that it required memorizing a text.
Yes.
And this is something that we have to be careful with, because I don't want students to take away that for jigsaw it's based on memorizing, right? More importantly, it's based on, for example, like learning or discussing or taking notes even, so that you are able to explain your part of the jigsaw, right? So you're part of information, but it doesn't necessarily mean memorizing the information, right?
And in fact, it's not even advisable. No, nothing that we need to memorize is advisable because our memory can fail. And if our memory fails, well, then we fail with the project or whatever we want to do. So yes, thank you very much for the observation, Teacher Deon. Yes, you're right. Anybody wants to say something, or we move on to the other one?
So it is based on group work and presentations or something like that?
Yes, it
yes?
is. Well, it is based on that everybody will have something to do in order to complete a task. That is the idea. That each member of the, you can think of it as a team, as a puzzle, where each member of the group has something to do in order to complete a task. And if one of them fail, well, then you can fail with the whole project. That's why it says you need to take a sense of ownership. This means you need to feel responsible that you have to do your part. You have to work with your part. And if you don't, you will need to answer to your team or to the members of your group, okay? Because you won't be able to accomplish the task.
So it can be any task, right?
Yeah, it can be any task. It can be used like in pretty much anything. Yes.
Okay. Yeah,
you can
thanks.
adapt it.
Yeah, thanks, Deon, because I mean, it was great that she explained that part because I was thinking that it was based on memorization. So now it's clear.
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Santiago. Natalie says, according to my experience, this approach is really helpful because it encourages students to listen to each other, work as a team, and have a social engagement. Yes. I mean, you really need to rely on your classmate. You need to trust him. You need to know that he's going to be responsible enough, and you interact. You interact pretty well because you need that collaboration. You need to work as a team in order to complete the task. I think we can move on to the other one, Deon. Think, pair, and share. Have you heard about this before? Y si no, ¿de qué se imaginan que se trata sin leer la diapositiva? Que ahí lo dice todo. Anybody? Think, pair, and share. Have you heard about it?
No.
No? No? Okay. Bueno, vamos a ver de qué se trata. It says, students work together to solve a problem or answer a question about an assigned reading. Of course, again, these activities are all based in a certain skill, but remember that many techniques and strategies can be applied to any of the skills. It's just that you probably need to adapt it or to do a certain variation of it, but it can work, okay? This is an example that, again, that we are giving you here, no? It says it requires students to think individually about a topic or answer to a question and to share ideas with a classmate. Of course, as the name says, they're going to work in pairs, okay? What are the benefits? It maximizes, how do they share ideas with their classmates? Well, they maximize participation, they focus their attention, and engage students in comprehending the reading material. Which are some benefits that the students can have with this technique? It improves students' reading comprehension. It gives students time to think about an answer and activate prior knowledge. It enhances students' oral communication skill as they discuss their ideas with one another. That would be the peer work. And the student become an active participant in their learning. How do we implement this think, peer, share? Okay, the first thing is that you need to pose a question or an issue or a scenario, okay? And of course, this issue or this scenario has to involve a decision. I mean, students have to make a decision. So you have to tell the students to think about what would be their response to this question, to this scenario, to this issue, okay? And they don't really need to write it down, but if they want to, and I normally tell them to write it down because then when they have to share, they forget, well, you ask them to write it, okay? You should give them enough time to think, okay? And after that, you're going to tell them to form pairs. And when they form pairs, they're going to share their idea, okay, with their partner. This will allow students to consider what the others are thinking too. What is the idea that the others have? What is their perspective on the issue that you are giving them, okay? Another thing that you can do if you have the time, you can have the students, a pair of students to share with another pair of students. And of course, this is going to enrich the knowledge, the conversation, the topic that you are talking about, or the issue that you are having, if you have the time. And if you have the time, it can even become a discussion of a whole class. Okay, you can have everybody then at the end discuss the problem or the question or whatever you assigned. In this case, if it was a reading, well, about the reading. No. So Deon, could you please put on the video?
How to think, pair, share. Think, pair, share is a learning strategy that promotes classroom participation, can be used at any age, and can be planned or impromptu. Think, pair, share is a great way to encourage higher level class discussions by allowing students time to think and reflect beforehand. In order to introduce Think, Pair, Share into your own classroom, be sure to model the technique first with a volunteer. Allow students to ask questions at this time to ensure that they fully understand how it works. The strategy itself involves 3 steps. Step 1, think, begins with the teacher asking a higher order thinking question. Then, students are quiet for a minute or 2 so that each can think on their own about the question. The second step is pair. You may assign specific pairs, use elbow partners, or students may choose their own partners. Students will then share their thinking with their partners, discuss ideas, and ask questions. This should take about 2 to 5 minutes. The third step is share. Students now share their ideas with everyone in a class discussion. Allow students to choose who wants to share their thoughts, ideas, and questions with the whole class in order to help all students feel comfortable and safe. There are many benefits to introducing Think, Pair, Share in your classroom. Silent think time improves the quality of student responses, while pairing and sharing build oral communication skills. In addition, many students feel safer and find it easier to share with one person rather than a whole group. Also, students can retain more information when they have the opportunity to reflect and discuss. In sharing their ideas, students take ownership of their learning and negotiate meaning rather than relying solely on the teacher's authority. To help introduce Think, Pair, Share in your classroom, remember that classroom posters are a great way to remind students how the strategy works. You can also use worksheets to help keep your students organized. Good luck using Think, Pair, Share in your own classroom.
Very good, thank you. What do you think, guys? Here, teacher Deon says this technique is especially helpful for your more introvert students who don't feel comfortable speaking up in the whole classroom. It allows for a gradual transition and building students' confidence to participate in the classroom. True, okay? What do you think, guys? Have you now kind of remembered? Maybe you have experienced it?
Yes, I have.
Okay, William?
Yeah, once in, I think it was about a year ago, we made, I think it was actually the same activity. First we had to think, then we were in pairs, and we did what you mentioned of talking to another pair, and finally have like a final conclusion. And it was, I personally could see, I was able to see what teacher Deon said about introvert students because I was paired with an introvert girl.
Oh, okay.
I think it's really interesting and useful.
Okay, thank you very much, William. Yes, yes, it really helps because when students are able, the more introvert students, no, they can easily share better with a pair than in front of the whole class, no, and this could get them, talking and get them going, and they would feel confident enough to discuss, no. Okay, anybody else, very fast, wants to share something about this?
May I speak?
Yes, go ahead, Ariadne.
Well, I think it's a really useful tool as well because as students, it allows us to create a critic point of view about the topic we are talking about. And also it increases our confidence with our classmates because we are always afraid of making mistakes in class in front of our classmates, in front of the teacher. And I think this helps us to develop more confidence with us, and as we are talking with our classmates, we can have a better development about the topic and also create our own critic point of view about it. So yeah, I think it's really helpful and a really good strategy.
Yes, thank you very much, Ariadne. Yes, pretty sure that's good, no? The interaction that you can have and the trust that the student has or the confidence that they have to talk with each other. Daniel dice, pienso que es una buena estrategia porque los estudiantes interactúan entre ellos y comparten sus ideas. Y eso ayuda a aumentar su conocimiento. Muy cierto, Daniel, muy cierto. Ok, muchas gracias. Vamos a pasar al siguiente, que es el role play. Creo que todos, everybody has done this, no? Or everybody in some time or some point has role played in an English class or have had their students role play in an English class. Al menos estaba en literatura, ¿verdad? Entonces, it says this strategy will help students develop interpersonal skills, including assertive communication and negotiation within a range of contexts. It helps build empathy and experience a variety of perspectives by adopting different roles. This also, it says empathy because sometimes we don't have to be in agreement with the role that we need to play, no? Sometimes they tell us to play a role that we don't really agree with, but we have to do it. And sometimes it helps us understand better, no? Plan effective strategies for managing real life situations. Another important thing about role plays is that they can ask us to actually act out things that actually happen in life, not things that really are going on there, okay? Well, I think I won't say that much about role plays. So I don't know if you guys want to say something about it, talk about it. Of course, there are different types of role plays. No? There could be telephone role plays, interview, advice, role plays, team role plays. I mean, there are many types, no? Fishbowl. There is some sites that Teacher Deon is going to share that I am pretty sure you can find a lot more information about this, no? So, Deon, I don't know if anybody has anything to say. If not, that would be it. The only thing that I would like to tell them is that there are a whole bunch of techniques and strategies out there that you can look for to make your classes, well, better and to have ideas, no, of what you can do in a class that sometimes we don't really know what to do. There are techniques for large groups, for small groups, for, you know, for pretty much everything. So that would be it.
Thank you, Sonia. Teacher Sonia, very much for sharing these helpful techniques. I know that there are several of my personal favorites in there that I found really helpful to use with students. I think just trying to sometimes find ways to mix and kind of like to mix up and mix and match your classes helps. And I want to bring out here something that I think it was Uriel mentioned at some point, that it's important that as teachers, we know different strategies and different techniques that we can use, because One technique might not work very well with your students, right? And you won't know that until you try it out, but it's important that if you try it out a couple of times and you're seeing that it's not working, then maybe you should try something different, right? So that's why it's important to have kind of like, if we think about a toolbox, you don't only have a hammer in a toolbox, right? You need to have several different types of tools in there, and depending on whatever type of tool you need and works best for the job that you need to get done. So teaching works in the exact same way. So I'm very quickly going to transition into, those are, by the way, some techniques that are useful in higher education, but that doesn't mean that you cannot implement them or use them in other educational levels. I mean, you can use them across different educational levels, but we specifically recommend them in your new teaching, practicing experiences in higher education. So I'm going to introduce a few resources for English language teaching that I think are going to be helpful for you as you are designing your materials and working with students at university level. So the first one is, we know that in language classes, conversation is a big part of it, right? So it's very frequent that according to the topics, we ask our students, we want to get conversations going among our students. And one of my personal favorites is the Internet Teaching English as a Second Language journal site, where they have a very extensive list of topics. And these are just some of them, but basically there's like everything and anything on there where you can go in, click on it, and then up comes a list of conversational questions that you can use. Now this is really helpful because these are just more to promote like the fluency part of language teaching, right? But also, instead of you having to sit down and think of conversation questions, you can come to this resource, look for the topic that you're looking for, and of course, select some of them. Some of these lists of questions like are up to 100 questions regarding each one of the topics. So I wouldn't recommend you to print out all of the list of the 50 or 100 questions and take them to your students and say, choose from them, because just going through them is probably going to take them 10 minutes to do it, right? But it will help you as a teacher maybe select some of the most important ones. You can also see there, I'm not sure if you can see the resource, but as you go in, you'll see that there are some more basic level questions like that require basic grammar structures and vocabulary, like do you have any pets? And then, for example, some more advanced ones like what 2 things could you not do when you were a child, but that you can do now, right? So there's kind of like one of I guess the cons of this site is that they are not divided or split up into language levels, but I think that you can do that focusing on the grammar and vocabulary and so forth that you're using for your classes. And it's just a very good way of even like kind of splitting these into groups maybe, and giving like each group a different set of questions to talk about. So this is one of my common go-to to look for conversational questions. A second one for developing language skills and sub-skills has to do with 2 sites that come from the British Council. So the British Council actually has the first one, which is Learn English. And one of the things that you can notice up here is that it has like the skills, and then it also has sub-skills, okay? So this provides helpful resources according to skills and sub-skills. And one of the things that I like is that you can choose also according to students' language level. So in this case, you'll see that, for example, like beginner one, I've chosen the skill of listening, and then it divides the materials available according to students' language level. So that's going to be very helpful when you're trying to maybe look for listening tasks or reading tasks or even grammar and vocabulary that are based on the Common European Framework of Reference. Another thing that I really like about this site and the next one that I'm going to be showing is that it also provides students a variety, like a more extensive variety of English accents, thinking about like varieties of English like Australian, British, American, you know, all of these kind of like different accents, intonations, and so forth that we start to see. a second resource that's from the British Council is very similar, except this one is Learn English Teens. So this, even though it's more targeted towards teenagers, the reality is the students that we'll be working with in higher education, they're not teenagers, but they are young adults. So again, these topics have also seemed, I think, very interesting for the students that I've worked with at least. And again, one of the things that both sites allow for, if you see here, is that it actually has a free kind of like English level test. So even thinking about if you're working in private kind of asesorías or tutoring, this is also a good resource that you can use. But thinking about your university experience and working with university students, again, here you can define the specific level, for example, according to the Common European Framework. You can choose the section referring to skills or sub-skills, and then you can also include specific topics that you might be interested in, right? So the more that you kind of like narrow in your search, the less resources that will come up in your search, right? So you can kind of play with that as you look for materials. But this is an example where I selected like at an elementary A2 level, and then I wanted to focus on reading skills, for example, right? So several tasks come up. And one of the good things about this as well is that, first of all, they're online, so all of the resources are available online. Students can go in and work on them online. They're interactive, and or you can also print them out in PDF files. So those students that don't have access to internet, you can download the audios, the PDF files, and send them by WhatsApp or whatever platform you're using. So it has like a different modalities also that can help you right now, especially for this pandemic situation that we're going through. When we think about writing, and you notice that I provided one resource specifically for speaking, and now I'm going into writing, and it's because I think that a lot of the times these are the productive skills that we don't always spend as much time on in the classroom, especially writing, because it's very frequent that I've seen teachers leaving the writing assignment as something to do outside of the classroom and then submit it, but that's the end of it. You get a grade for it, but it's not really thinking about developing writing skills and writing as a process. So one thing that I've found very helpful also is to use Quill. I tried using this in my English class, in my English 6 class during the transition to online education in the spring. I listed it as one of the resources. I'm not sure that very many students did it, but it does. One of the things that I love about this specific website is that you can see here, you can create your classes. So for free, you have to create an account, and your students also. That's one of the downsides, I guess. But once you do that, and it's free completely, you can assign specific activities to your students in your class. So in this case, for example, you'll see that they have like diagnostic assessments that you can assign your students, but you'll also see that they have a whole bunch of activities of things that can help students develop their writing skills, and you can choose them and assign them based on the topics that you're developing. So let's say if you're working on prepositions and prepositional phrases, then this is like an activity that maybe you can assign them. Okay, so again, these are all free resources, and the links are here on the left-hand side where you can go into the websites. And another one for developing writing skills, which I think several of you are familiarized with, but in case you're not, is Grammarly. Grammarly you might have used in your experience as a student to proofread your own work, but you can also use it as a teacher. So the free version of it allows you to identify the main grammar, punctuation mistakes, and so forth. I use it as a teacher as well. Like if I see a student has several mistakes in his or her writing activities, then you can either upload the file, or you can also copy and paste the selection of the text like I've done here. And then it gives you an overall score, which, I don't recommend you to use this to grade your students' work, because there's a lot more than what the function of the program is doing, right? But it will highlight most of the main mistakes, and then you can even take a screenshot and provide this to your students and have them go back and identify what the specific mistake was and have them correct it. So this is a tool that you can use not only as a student, but also as a teacher with your students' writings, okay? And a final resource that I think is very important for writing, and it's especially helpful for teachers. I use it personally even with my own students, así que ojo, ahí va les estoy contando los secretos. Plagiarism. We know that plagiarism is something that happens not only in language classes, not only in university classes, but in several educational levels, right? As you get to know your students, you a lot of times can identify when something was written by your students and when something wasn't written by your students, right? Also, you can identify based on the topics, like things that maybe you've read before. So in that case, this website is a very helpful tool because it allows you to, again, you can either upload a file or you can just do the paragraph which you think is being plagiarized. You copy, paste it into the box, and you just click one button and it'll tell you automatically the percentage of the text that's plagiarized. And not only that, but it also tells you the sources and the links to where that information was obtained from. So this is an important tool to have as teachers as you're grading writing activities because it helps you identify what tasks were really completed by your students and which ones weren't, okay? Now, ojo, sometimes it's normal to find, like if you input a text and it says maybe like a 10% or 15% was plagiarized, it will show you here the specific text. So it's normal that sometimes some text might come up as plagiarized as long as it's quoted, right? So we use quotes a lot of time when we're writing, and that's okay as long as it's properly cited. But as you can see here, this nevertheless, a minority of those studies, et cetera, was just taken specifically from the text without the proper citations, and that is plagiarism, of course. So again, these are just some very helpful resources from my toolbox to add to your toolboxes. And with that, very quickly, we're gonna go back to teacher Sonia, who's gonna share some tips from experienced educators.
Thank you, teacher Deon. Thank you very much. Well, these are some tips that we have from our teachers, your teachers. So we're just gonna go ahead and read them as they are because I didn't make any changes to them, okay? So teacher Deon here, this is yours, the first one. It says, focus on writing and speaking as a process. Use self-assessments and peer revisions before students submit their work, okay? And this can help students learn to work collaboratively, identify their own and others' mistakes, and make it easier to grade a proofread version of students' work. If you're teaching integrated skills, make sure you are integrating all skills and reinforcing the skills your students need to work on. It is very common to see that classes focus on grammar and vocabulary. Writing is left as homework, and listening and speaking is occasionally practiced in classroom. Very occasionally, Deon. Very occasionally. Okay, let's go ahead with the other one. This is Rafael Velasco. Él habla del trabajo colegiado colaborativo, el que se hace entre profesores, que por cierto está muy bien ejemplificado ahorita con los maestros de inglés 1, porque ellos están trabajando de esa manera, ¿no? Dice, los mismos profes comparten la planeación de la semana. Esto ayuda a la reducción del trabajo de planeación y ayuda a la cohesión de temas. También otro tip es dar un espacio en las sesiones sincrónicas para platicar con los alumnos sobre cómo se sienten de la última sesión, 10 o 20 minutos, nos recomienda el profe Rafa. También usar Google Forms para la elaboración de exámenes autocalificables. Esto se ha vuelto bastante común y la verdad que es una buena herramienta para los maestros porque pues sí te ayuda a ahorrar un poco de tiempo y a ser un poquito más certero en tus calificaciones, ¿no? Gracias, maestro Rafa. ¿El otro día? Bueno, la maestra Citlali nos comparte Medina, nos dice, también tener actividades que haríamos en clase como juegos o canciones para que se despierten a las 7 a.m. y que les haga repasar lo que vimos en clases anteriores. Y también que sigan practicando speaking en grupos de 3 o 4, los breakout rooms de Teams, ¿ok? Ahorita los maestros de verdad con esto de la pandemia se están poniendo muy creativos porque pues no hay de otra, hay que entrarle y no podemos, pues tenemos que hacer eso, ¿no? Ver qué herramientas, qué técnicas, qué cosas nos pueden ayudar para que también nosotros podamos apoyar a nuestros estudiantes. En el caso del maestro José Manuel, él dice, tenemos la sesión sincrónica por Teams. Ahí les comparto un documento de Google donde les he preparado algunas actividades. Los que tienen cómputo y buena conexión pueden participar en el documento. Me supongo que es al momento. Así ya no solo participan hablando en el micrófono. Les he puesto juegos como hacíamos con un pintarrón en clase. Tal vez quien puede escribir primero una respuesta o que obtienen información en una tabla o quien encuentra la imagen o descripción correcta. Puede insertar círculos para que ellos los usen para que seleccionen algo moviendo estas figuras. Ya los que no pueden editar estos documentos son a los que se les pregunta por medio del micrófono. Gracias, maestro José Manuel. La maestra Aurora nos dice, bueno, ver capítulos de series en Netflix con subtítulos en inglés y luego contestan ejercicios y dan opiniones durante las sesiones por Teams. Esto nos ayuda a practicar muchísimas cosas, ¿no? Varias de las habilidades. La maestra Minerva nos dice, para practicar el speaking hago videollamada en parejas para darle su comentario respectivo. Ese feedback es muy importante. A veces los profesores de verdad por falta de tiempo o porque se nos olvida, no le damos el feedback apropiado, ¿no? a los estudiantes. Y también uso Google Forms para los exámenes. También antes de las sesiones les dejo material para que revisen y en las sesiones solo reforzamos o aclaramos dudas. Ok, maestra Minerva, muchas gracias. La maestra Ana Velasco nos dice, sesiones sincrónicas con un tiempo para charlar con los chicos de cómo se sienten y también para recibir comentarios, sus sugerencias sobre el trabajo en línea y sus necesidades. Trabajar en la plataforma con hojas de trabajo y foros de discusión. Exámenes con secciones de Google Forms para agilizar el proceso de calificación. Trabajo colaborativo en ciertas habilidades como listening o writing. Apoyo, ¿verdad?, con los compañeros. Uso de la plataforma Google Classroom para la organización y registro de calificaciones. Así también para la distribución de material y entrega de tareas. Uso de Teams, Google Classroom y correo institucional para la constante comunicación con los alumnos. Esos son algunos de los tips que nos comparte la maestra Ana Velasco y pues los profesores, sus profesores, ¿no? So, thank you very much. That would be it. Pues no sé, Deon, creo que la sesión de Q&A, ¿no?
Yeah, we still have about 15 minutes left for any questions, comments that may have come up as you're thinking about all these different things. So we try to provide a good context, a list of techniques, some useful specifically resources, and of course insider tips from educators who are currently working in higher education. So go ahead if you want to either use the chat box to write comments and or questions, and you can also raise hands so that we have an order, okay? I'm monitoring here both of them, so.
Don't be shy, at least to tell us something that you like the presentation or you didn't like the presentation, it is useful, it wasn't useful, something.
I would like to say something.
Go ahead.
I think, yeah, thanks. I think it was a very interesting presentation. I think that many of the examples or the tips are for I feel that they were for classes that are face to face, but I think that the tips for non-presential classes, like right now because of the pandemic and quarantine, I think they were useful. But I have a question on for instance, for flipped classroom. I just I just, I mean, I just see it in a presential, I mean, sorry. I just see it like to give feedback for instance, for a writing or, I don't see like a flipped classroom for a speaking activity. So I don't know if you could like give an example or something, because the flipped classroom right now for non-presential classes, it seems troublesome for me to imagine some kind of class.
Okay. Ay, creo que está abierto mi micrófono, sí, ¿verdad?
Yeah, it's open.
Okay, well, William, yes, one of the things, remember, I was kind of telling you that I wasn't, or I didn't realize that I was using for my literature class this type of flipped classroom. Because one thing could be that you could assign, I don't know if it is a literature class, for example, or if it's a reading that you're going to see in the class, you can assign it for homework, and then when you come to the class, the speaking activity could be the debate, or it could be the discussion that you could have based on that reading that you had. No? That could be an example of what you could do of a speaking activity. The idea of the flipped classroom is that you don't read the information in class, but work with the information that you left as a homework, no? And that you could do several activities. So among those activities, for example, if you have a story or a reading or something that the students did as a homework, you can come with activities of debate or discussion, and that would probably serve as a speaking, no, activity. Again, it depends on your own, or as a teacher, what do you really want? What's the objective of the lesson that you have planned for? No? I don't know if teacher Deon has another idea that she could share, or maybe somebody else in the audience, no?
Sure, I just wanted to add that, William, so that it becomes clear when we think of flipped classroom, the idea is that for whatever skill that you are going to develop with your students, the preparation for the production for the task at hand. So the task at hand most of the time takes place in the classroom, right? But all of the preparation happens before that. So if the task at hand, like teacher Sonia was exemplifying, you are going to do a debate, for example, let's say on, I don't know, you choose a controversial topic, okay? For example, the death penalty, right? I don't know, I'm just thinking of one controversial topic that comes to mind. Students are going to have to prepare for that. They have to have background knowledge and build maybe, so to build for that and to prepare for that debate, maybe they're going to be watching a video, for example, talking about the definition of the death penalty. Maybe they're going to be reading an article that talks about how or the death penalty happens or doesn't happen among different countries, for example, and what the results have been. So they do all that preparation before the class so that when they get to the classroom, then they can actually perform, right? So what happens if we don't do it? If we do it under the more traditional lens, then what's going to happen is in the classroom, we are playing, for example, maybe the video, we're giving them the reading text, and all of that takes time, right? So a lot of times we don't get to the part of actually developing the skill, the speaking skill, because that's the focus. Now, that doesn't mean that I'm trying to suggest that all of the listening and reading should be done outside of the classroom. I'm just giving this example because you said, like, if we're focusing on the speaking skill, right? But in the same way, if we're focusing on the writing skill, then students would have to read about, prepare for, and so forth, and maybe even bring a draft of the text that they have written for homework into the classroom. And then we start looking at ways that we can improve it. And the same can be said for the speaking as well. You can have them do a recording, for example, and then bring it. I think we did that in the English 6 class, where you bring a recording into the classroom, right? And then you're focusing on improving that recording. So there are different ways of how we could integrate the skills, but the idea is that the preparation for the task takes place outside of the classroom, right? The same thing happens like what we commonly think of the presentation stage of a lesson. a lot of the time is what is going to take place out of the classroom. If it's a grammar topic, then, right, again, we can do some kind of prep of a video or a PowerPoint presentation and so forth. And then students already come with that background knowledge and we build on it in the class.
Thank you, Deon. Well,
Okay,
William?
thanks.
Sure.
Can
think
I
Santiago wanted to comment something? Go ahead, Santiago.
should we tell the students what you're going to study before, or we can let them explore whatever they want? Because I consider it's better to choose, you know, what they should learn and study. For example, 3 articles from the internet, and then work with that. What do you think?
So again, this is going to depend on the level of your students and the type of skills that you're developing. But I would suggest, I mean, unless you're trying to develop skills where students are able to like curar contenidos and select some that are appropriate, I would probably encourage, for language purposes, that you give students the specific reading activities and videos, like no nada más los manden así como que investiguen ciertos recursos, right? O sea, tiene que ser un ejercicio planificado en ese caso. And I personally like to be very specific and very organized in the structure of my classes and other activities by stating what the objective is, because I think that if we help students know what the learning objective is, then it's going to be easier for them to understand what's expected and why it's important.
Yes, if we don't have that clear, definitely the students will be lost, no? And we will also be lost in the class.
Yeah, I agree. We have to choose the specific like content so they can work with that.
Yeah. Okay,
Thank
you. Anybody else?
So I see we have a comment here from Uriel. Thank you, Uriel. I'm glad to know that, well, we're both glad to know that these techniques might be helpful for you in your experience now in teacher practicum, but also as future English teachers.
Yes, thanks.
Anybody else? I don't think so. Okay, well, I think we can go ahead and finish, Sonia, unless you have a final comment that you'd like to mention. I just want to say thank you to all of you for being here today. And if you would like to, we provided a link. I think, wasn't there a link where they could send, and we could send them the link to the presentation? Let me go back. Sorry.
I didn't see it, no.
Okay, let me put the link in the chat box so that you can fill out. Oh, okay. Okay, here we go. Here's the link. So, okay, I'm gonna copy and post it. If you can fill this out and you would like to receive a copy of the presentation, then we will definitely share it with you.
Okay, the only thing I want to say also is thank you. I'm really glad to see that we have a lot of participants. I am really happy that this will, I hope it works for you guys. It was useful information. And when I expect to have another presentation sometime, maybe next year.
Thank you very much, guys. Sonia and Deon, it's been a very interesting and informative session. I'm pretty sure the guys are going to profit a lot from it. So thank you very much for sharing it.
Thank you, Magnolia. Thank you.
Thank you. I just want to thank also Magnolia, Vladi, well, Professor Vladimir, Magnolia Negrete, Armando Perez Morfin, Floriceli Sai that are here with us today. Thank you so much for being here with us.